our honorary awards. These are people that had been nominated by one of your peers or from the industry, and we appreciate this whole room and all of the cybersecurity practitioners here. But we do have a group of people we're going to honor right now. So let's start with Tom Spivey. He is from Dairy Queen. He's a senior IT risk and compliance analyst. Tom, are you in the room? Come on up, Tom. Hopefully you brought some dilly bars for us all. Okay, we have Wade Kazmerzik is the director of IT from NatureWorks. Wade, are you here still? Come on up, Wade. Congratulations. We have Samuel Meter. I thought I saw you in the crowd. He is Information Security and IAM Manager from Hennepin Healthcare Systems. Where are you, Samuel? He was here earlier because I did see him. All right, Noel Stave is the CTO at RBC Wealth Management. Noel, not Noel, Noel. We do know these people checked in, but these people are so important they can't stay all day, I guess. That's supposed to be a joke that you guys are supposed to laugh at, but... Every city's different of who laughs at my jokes. Marcus Lee is the IT director from Clearfield. Marcus Lee, all right, congratulations, Marcus. Madahar Chaudhary, I'm sorry that I messed your name up. IT audit manager from Mayo Clinic. I'm sorry. And I've met her so many times, I apologize that I messed your name up. Okay, Jonathan Beckel, IT manager from Country Financial. Jonathan. Jeff Johnson, senior manager of IT security from Marvin Lumber and Cedar Company. All right, congratulations. Jeff Seibel is IT director from Stevens County Medical Center. Okay. Jason Rowe is IT manager from Cortec Corporation. Dmitry Bliznakov is cybersecurity manager from Next Era Analytics. I'm sorry that I messed your name up as well. Thank you. Congratulations. Dave Anquest is IT manager from Jeff Anderson and Associates. Clara Wolf is IT internal audit manager from Best Buy. All right, congratulations. We have the Best Buy table right there. Austin Wolf is the VP Information Security Officer from Bridgewater Bank. Austin Wolf, are you here, Austin, still? Brandon Purser is Information Security Officer from Cornerstone Bank. Congratulations. Carlos Tongase is the IT director from Medtronic. Congratulations. All right, I'll just have you deliver these. I have a big round of applause to this person, Matthew Bohne, VP, Chief Product Security Officer, who did an amazing keynote from Honeywell Corporation. Thank you, Matthew. Vince Aimutis, Vince, I'm sorry. He is the VP Director of Information Security, CISO at Federated Insurance, and one of our great panelists today. Congratulations. I have Conan Sandberg as a Senior Director of Cybersecurity from Platform Science. Thank you, Conan. And last but not least, Doug Koch is representing the InfraGard today and our moderator. So Doug, Here you go. And we did have, here you go. We had Bindi Davis that was supposed to be with us, and she flew all the way in from, I think, Phoenix, and got here and was not feeling well at all and just had to leave. So our diversified female representative is not here today. So I get lots of bad LinkedIn messages when I don't have a fully diverse panel. So don't yell at me, anyone, on LinkedIn. I tried. So anyway, we're excited about the panel. Doug's going to moderate. So everyone, let's welcome our panelists. And don't forget, if you guys have questions, please wait for our tech team to bring the mic to you, because we still have about 250 virtual people watching, and they want to hear your questions. And our virtual attendees, you guys have been very quiet today, so if you have any questions for the panel, please put it in the chat box, and we will make sure the panel hears your questions. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to the panel.
When the FBI calls, am I on here? Flip the switch, maestro. When the FBI calls and leaves you a voicemail, you listen. Now, you trust but verify, and I'm really glad I called them back. The reason they were contacting me is there was an active investigation in cybercrime that they were working on, and a couple of the IP addresses of the organization I was working with were on the list. So we worked together to figure out what the issues were and collaborate. It worked really well. Now, the key item that I'm presenting here on that is that it's all about relationships. Now, you can use technology and various things to find issues and so forth, but because of the relationship with the FBI, they knew who to contact, and there wasn't any issue. I was already a known entity within their database from a positive perspective, so they gave me a call. Now, with that, that's the plug for InfraGard. Now, InfraGard, if you're not familiar with them, it's a private relationship with the FBI that works primarily in the critical infrastructure, energy, finance, hospitals, food, those types of industries. And it's very easy to become a member. You go to the website, and there's a background check that they run on you. If you have security level already, that you'll get better access or closer information to the honeypot, if you will. So it's certainly good information there. If you have questions about it, let's see, is Tim, there's Tim. Tim Herman is the president of the Minnesota chapter. So, and they have a desk, or they have a table over on the side there. It's free. You have access to various information. There's events that they have. There's secure logins that you can access other information about what's going on. So I certainly recommend doing it. It's a good thing to do. So there's the plug on InfraGard. I've spent my career leading technology more at the C-level within organizations and working with the security teams, individuals that we have here, and working on issues that occur. And ideally, you work with them with a calm mind and a structure that has governance, and you just work the plan and execute and make it work. And as we know in this environment today, that collaboration and understanding what's going on with all the technology, that's more important than ever. On a personal note, and this is my personal plug, I'm between jobs right now, not because of the FBI call, but I'm a manufacturing technology executive. So it's all about networking. So if any of you know of opportunities, particularly in that area, I would love to talk to you. So that's, we'll leave that there. So with that, let's dive into this conversation, because the threats are evolving, the stakes are rising, and the way we lead through risk has never mattered more. Cybersecurity is more of a contact sport. AI accelerates both sides. Chris will talk about AI a little bit. Complexity expands the blast radius, and resilience matters as much as prevention. In this panel, we'll keep it candid, debating trade-offs on actions you can take with you to wrap up the day. So appreciate your time here. So with that, we'll start with short introductions. We got a few topics to go through, and my sense is we'll want a fair amount of time for open mic. So I'm watching the time here, and we'll just see. If it's quiet, we'll have some more topics. So as far as we'll start out with rapid introductions. So name, role, company, and let's throw in, how about one cyber belief that's overrated? Maybe that'll be a little hanging deal that we'll talk about later. So let's start with you, Vince.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. My name is Vince Aimutis, VP, CISO, and Director of Information Services at Federated Insurance down in Owatonna, Minnesota. So we're about a $3.5 billion commercial insurance company, been around 121 years. I've been there about 19 years, but I have the pleasure of overseeing multiple different teams, about 17 different teams in our IT department, ranging from infrastructure, middleware, a few application development teams, in addition to our security program. So, a belief that's overrated, is that what it was? Mm-hmm. A belief that's overrated.
Well, a security belief that's
a security
cyber belief that's overrated.
Oh man, I think cybersecurity is undoubtedly a stressful job. But I actually think that belief is a little overrated. It's overramped. It's I think you need to manage that well. I think that is a very hard thing to do, but I'm going to take a little edgy feel on that. I actually think that is a overrated belief if you know how to manage it well.
There you go.
Conan Sandberg. I'm our head of cybersecurity at Platform Science. It's a telematics company out of San Diego. I've been with them not 19 years, 4 months. So a little bit shorter on that front, but I got started in cybersecurity at the NSA, so maybe I was the one that made that phone call to you.
No, it wasn't, but I'm with you.
On top of that, a telematics provider, serving telematics would be almost like the app store for transportation logistics, so making sure that trucks on the road know where they're going, what their tax is, all kinds of stuff that goes into that. I've learned more about trucking than I ever knew prior in the last couple of years, because previously before here I was at Trimble, which divested part of the company, and then spent some time at United Health Group before that. And then I would say something about cybersecurity that, what was the question around?
A cyber belief that's overrated.
AI can help cybersecurity. That is my belief. It's overrated.
Okay, all right.
Hi, I won't bore you with my background. You guys already, if you were around earlier, then you already heard the rather long version of that. My name is Matthew, and I am the Vice President, Chief Product Security Officer at Honeywell. Overrated point in cybersecurity is there are no cybersecurity skills. Like there's no people with those skills available, and I think that is a bit overrated. I think there's actually quite a few people. I talk to people all the time. They're like, "Oh, we can't find people. We can't." And I'm like, "No, they're there. You just got to go look for them." And I think there are quite a few. I mean, this room's a great example. There's some awesome, skilled experts in this room and in your staff. And I think it's about leveraging that more and finding better ways of making those people more visible so you can take more advantage of their skills.
And if there's not, we got to do a better job of training them, right?
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you for that, gentlemen. I'm a very much a foundation up kind of guy, and Matthew talked quite a bit about budgeting and expenses and those types of things. In my experience, the security function rolls up to me, and I think it varies with all different companies here. So I'm just curious to get your perspective on what are the best ways for businesses to define what level of security is needed? What's enough? And how do you determine that? And of course, it's key to learn the business. I require of every IT professional, you really have to understand the business. Now with this, it's to ultimately lead to define an agreed upon foundation of governance with a level of dynamic awareness, so you don't just have your head in the sand. If things start to go wacky, that you are able to remove the blinders enough to say, okay, we need to adapt to this. So I'm just, to summarize again here, I'm just curious to get a sense of, number one, how do you determine what security, because we have all sorts of vendors in the other room here, what security is necessary to support the business? And then how do you make sure you are able to adapt to new events as they occur?
I take a stab at starting at this. I think for a minimum baseline, you just got to figure out what's most important to your business. Are you a regulated industry? Are you not? I think that's going to be a good starting point. Cyber insurance has also gotten significantly more in depth with what they're asking for. If you want a higher premium, don't have good cybersecurity controls. On the flip side, if you have better cyber hygiene, your cyber insurance premium is probably going to be a little bit better. So I think there's some aspects that push us to have minimum baselines. I don't really think we ever get to a point where we feel that it's enough. And then kind of going back to even like information sharing and collaborating, I think if you have good trust with your business, they're going to bring issues to you that maybe prompts trends that you might be able to improve your program from those points. But I don't really think we ever hit a point where we feel safe. I think we get guardrails up where it's at least enough to let us sleep well at night. But relying on the input from others, because like developers, engineers are really smart, product people are smart, sales, marketing, they hear stuff from different competitors that maybe they're doing different things, our supply chain. Listening to other people and getting some of that feedback, you can identify certain trends to figure out maybe where to pivot. And then most importantly, partner with your business. Your business knows what direction they want to go and how your security controls accelerate that or slow it down, I think is where you kind of take your baseline from there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd add on to that. It's a continuous discussion, right? Risk appetites change all the time. It's that discussion with your executives, with your board. It's understanding that you are whatever type of company. Something I tell our team, often is we are an insurance company. We're not an IT company. We're not a security company. We might be an insurance company that does security and IT really well, but you have to know what your core values are and what you're trying to do there. So that's a continuous discussion. As you grow, as the different motivations of the business continue to evolve, whether you're trying to be profitable, trying to grow, or some other motivation, that feeds into what that risk appetite is, how much you're willing to innovate and things like that. But I think it's just that continuous type of discussion that is needed to better understand what you're trying to secure and how far you are to go, and then continuous methodical evolution. Matt talked earlier about just setting those minimum standards across what you're trying to do with your program too. I think that's a critically important point to get to, and then to just continuously improve in a methodical way over time.
Yeah, what they said. I'm often reminded of a statement somebody always told me to start this conversation about it, which is, when you're thinking about risk and sort of what's enough, it's whatever is enough until it's not, right? And that's often what happens in most companies, right? It's like, well, this is what we decided is our baseline, this is what we decided we're going to do, and this is where we're sort of going to be okay. And it was a risk discussion, and that's totally fine, and that's how it should be. And then something happens, and okay, well, that risk isn't as tolerable anymore. And we'll talk more about, resilience and durability, because that also factors into that, because if, it's a big part of how much risk you're willing to take, because it's like anything else. If you have a great deal of durability and resilience, you can take more risk. If you don't, you can't. And to my peers' points earlier, it also depends on, are you regulated? Because if you're regulated, there's some limits to what you can and cannot do. But I think that's really, start someplace, have minimums, and then work up.
And the common theme, too, is to keep the communication open, understand and talk to the business units and engage with individuals to find, okay, what are your challenges? What's going on? Perfect. Now we'll talk a little bit about AI and cybersecurity. AI is amplifying both attackers and defenders. Where are you seeing the biggest net gain right now? And what AI risks are leaders most underestimating? If it's data leakage, prompt injection, model poisoning, over-trust automation bias, or the SOC skills shift?
I'll take a quick start. This is our only AI question, guys, so be jacked. This is only one AI question, and then we're going on to other things. One of the risks I think I see, I'll start there, is cognitive atrophy. It's the over-reliance on the AI without understanding the fundamentals of what's going on. And I think that could be at it's a very human level. That's going to continue to progress over time. I look at how much people are in their phones already and things like that. I think cognitive atrophy will continue to be a bigger and bigger risk with more AI. What are we seeing as gains? The thing I'm probably most excited about is this revolution is forcing people to learn again. It's forcing people to learn across our entire organization, not just in IT. It's forcing them to learn quickly. And what's just really cool about that is there's an organic education happening amongst our teams, amongst our departments that are sharing the wins they're getting, the efficiencies they're seeing. And beyond just efficiencies, there's also effectiveness elements that are coming in. So I think that's one of the coolest things I'm seeing, whether it's efficiency or effectiveness. It's forcing people to learn in a new kind of way, and people are seeing wins on just a number of different levels and use cases already as this becomes more commoditized.
I would build onto that too. I think one of the biggest pieces with it is people are worried about like job replacement, things like that, but painting the vision from a leadership standpoint, whether you're a cybersecurity leader, a technology leader, painting the vision, how it's enabling people to go faster and really thinking big. Maybe we can solve business challenges we couldn't solve before, and bring some of those use cases maybe we couldn't do before, and we can do it faster. That part of it's been really exciting, and I think from a cybersecurity standpoint, it's in most of the tools that we're doing. Every vendor that we probably have, or anyone in there, they introduce an agent or an AI capability, whether it is that or it's branded on that. We see it everywhere that we are, and then internally, Cloud Code and Codex and Mythos, we're seeing a lot of speed in the area to which some of these things are making their way into the market, and people are using them either way. So it's building that trust to where people are going to bring these to you, and then also getting visibility. Like Zscaler, Netscope have great attributes to where they can see what's being used as far as like different AI tools, and then also some of the prompts that are actually getting put in there. You can do prompt injection to be, hey, this doesn't go against policy, but maybe be advised on the data that you put in here to make sure you contain some of the leakage. Push security also has capabilities to look from a browser standpoint. So I think getting visibility into it, even Wiz for that matter, they just released an AI security component, so getting visibility and not necessarily restricting the use, because people are going to use it. You just want them to be able to use it in a secure environment the best they can. But I think it's an exciting time. To Vince's point, we move faster, think bigger, and I think that's the message to send to people, and be a partner with them rather than an adversary, because they're going to use it either way.
Yeah, it's a really good point. People are going to use it no matter what, and it's becoming fairly ubiquitous. I bet everybody's got some sort of Copilot on their phones today. A couple of things to think about. One is, on one side, I think the capability of AI today, this moment in business world, is producing better quality work than the humans, right? In general, in terms of the quality of code over somebody writing code, because it structures things better and smoother. Even if you don't agree with the fine details, it does do a better job, makes the code readable, more organized, and frankly, you can do more of it faster. So those are real facts that people are living with today, and it does do a really fine job of that. I do think the world's changing a bit as well, and we'll see this over the next probably 12, 18, 24 months, I think, is, I'm often reminded, many of you know I worked for General Electric for a number of years, and every day I would come into work and I'd see, Thomas Edison's desk. I got to walk up to it, and it's where the guy sat there and came up with all these great, incredible inventions. And his common theme was, it's 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And I think AI literally flips that around. It's really going to end up being, for the average developer, and it's going to shift to being 99% inspiration and 1% perspiration, because AI is going to do all the real work of the coding behind them. And we'll see them become more supervisors of AI and less coders of AI. And that's a whole different mindset of how people, I think, are going to have to prepare themselves in their job and their work. And so, do I think AI is going to make coders, developers, people writing code go away? Well, maybe, if that's all you think of yourself as being. But if you think of yourself as being more than that, right? The creative aspects of your job and the creative aspects, you're going to be fine. It's how you sort of line yourself up into that, right? Is how that's going to play out, is my opinion.
Yeah. Great comments, gentlemen. Now we'll get to the human side. Burnout and stress. There's none of that in technology. Cyber work is increasingly relentless. What leadership practices protect the team's health without lowering outcomes? And where does automation and AI truly reduce workload versus simply shifting stress?
I think a big part of this comes down to relationships with your people too. I mean, people will probably do look at it as maybe replacement for a job, or maybe they look at, hey, this is going to make my job easier, better, or I want to use it. I'm afraid my boss is going to not let me use it type of thing because we are in cybersecurity. So I think it's having a good pulse on your team, painting that vision to say, hey, we are going to use this. This is how we're going to use it. And if you have good ideas, like bring them to the table, and making sure that they're heard, making sure that they feel that their workload isn't overloaded. So, I mean, that's another thing of having good pulse on your people, understanding what they're doing, why they're doing it, and casting that vision for them. I think that's our job as leaders, to really paint that vision so they know what they're doing, why they're doing it, and that usually encourages enthusiasm in the workplace versus showing up and feeling that your work doesn't necessarily paint to that bigger picture. Especially in cybersecurity, we're huge sales enablers. May not always be portrayed as that, but truly we are. We protect businesses, we keep them online, we keep them up, and casting that vision to the rest of your team and really being a part of the business, I think, can help some of that burnout and stress. And then also like letting them leverage some of these new technologies. I mean, it is exciting. Developers are excited, analysts are excited, they can use these new tools. It's like getting a new car, getting a new bike, people get excited. It's new technology, let them use it. It's gonna inspire them, to your point about some of the creativity aspect. Let them show their creativity to you, and it helps reduce some of the stress and burnout just by letting them feel included in the bigger vision of the company.
Yeah, I made some comments earlier today about culture. And culture is something you have to invest in no matter what's going on in your business, right? It's there. One of the major benefits of culture and having the right culture is it thwarts these problems. It thwarts this issue of burnout. Because if you're doing what you love, then you'd be amazed at how well you'll work, right? If you're doing, and you're in an environment where you like to be with other people that you also like to be with, and you're doing things, that does an incredible thing about how your brain works and how you overcome things like stress, because you kind of know people have your back. You kind of know that people care, and but remember, you have to start first as a leader, and have those attributes of your own, because it doesn't work unless it starts at the top, because you have to project that, and you have to perform that, and it can't be an act. It has to be truly authentic, because that's what authentic relationships are like, and that's how you keep people from feeling burned out or stressed out, and help them navigate. Because otherwise, you wouldn't see it, and people just burn out, and you have high attrition, and you wonder why. So, in my mind, those are critical attributes to how you have to really reinforce your culture always, in good times and in bad, so that you're prepared.
100%. Culture is so important. To create that environment of vulnerability is okay to say, hey, I am just slammed, or maybe I have something going on in my personal life, and how do we balance this, versus tuning out and creating other problems. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, culture is so critically important. Psychological safety, absolutely important as well. And really, kind of as I alluded to earlier, it's all about how you manage it. And when I think about managing it, I really think about resiliency. And by resiliency, I don't just mean taking vacations, which are also important. But it's those kind of micro resiliency moments throughout a day. It's taking a step away. It's not having the hero mentality on teams. Some people like taking on that hero mentality, and you can play to that as well. But it's not having that be a need on the team to be overly reliant on somebody, because that over reliance often leads to more stress on that individual too. So, building a good team culture, providing psychological safety is just critically important in managing that.
Perfect. Let's talk a little bit about the internal marketing and sales of what you do. And of course, we talked a little bit about how you determine what's necessary and create the budget. But then let's say things go swimmingly smooth and there aren't any notable cyber incidents throughout a year. What do you do from a internal marketing perspective to show, here's what we're doing behind the scenes? It's like a duck on the water, all the things that are going on underneath the water. How do you present that to continue to gain compliance or interest in supporting cybersecurity going forward from a financial perspective?
I think a couple little things, and I'll keep it brief, is just finding those wins, finding those things you can market and putting it in the language of the business. It's we used some of our passwordless journey or frictionless authentication to promote the efficiency we were gaining everybody by being able to use Windows Hello to sign in and have more single sign-on across the entire ecosystem and things like that. So promoting some of that, or there's a lot of mystique to security. It scares the hell out of a lot of people as well, and so if you can kind of humanize it and bring it to light of what you do and use some of those flashy elements, play to that a little bit, demystify it to people, use lunch and learns, use presentations in front of your leadership or your executive team. I think just simply understanding what you do in just a little level of more of detail without confusing anybody also just helps kind of promote how rock star your teams are.
Yeah, I would say just to even build on that a little bit, on some of the aspects that had helped me personally, I would say is the sales enablement piece is tracking some metrics along, like if you have like a trust portal, those are fairly popular now. I use trust portal in a couple instances now, and you can see customers that we interact with, tie it to what their ARR is, and maybe they use your SOC 2 report, maybe they had a customer security questionnaire, like capturing some of these small wins along the way that tied to maybe 500K ARR that tacked on to 10, 12, 15 different customers, maybe 50 customers in a year. And you can tie some of that revenue into how security and compliance drove the business to meet certain demands. And then even just capturing the sheer volume of numbers that you're seeing from requests that come in. A lot of the times they might just check the box to say this company has this compliance report, especially if you're in an unregulated industry, but showing why it's important and enabling your sales force to go out there and talk confidently about it. Helps tremendously, and it shows that you're an ally to the business, which makes some of those conversations easy. Maybe you don't have a security incident, but you want to spend another $1 million, $2 million in a new technology or new tool. Conversation's a lot easier when you can show that you're contributing to help the business grow. And even internally, some of those small wins, you increase user experience tremendously while making them more secure. Highlighting those and knowing your audience, I think, is a big part. Whether or not your board or executive leadership team has a technical background, doesn't have a technical background, I think is going to how you tailor your message to get them to understand, kind of demystify it. I like that term, demystify the cybersecurity work based on the audience, and that really goes into understanding who they are, what they care about most, and making your business objectives aligned to theirs.
And I find some team members may say they don't want the recognition, but showing what their organization or their facet of the company is doing and highlighting it, they're like, hey, I'm part of that. I'm making this happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent point. One of the things I think, it's very easy to heads down, just look, I'm doing pen testing, I'm doing my architectural reviews, I'm doing whatever, right? Or whatever governance piece. And I think it's super important that you help people understand how their work, our staff, your staff, benefits the company, and vice versa, the company therefore, right? And some of the simplest ways, like, sales calls all the time where they're asking for materials, like I need a SOC report, I need one. And, capturing the number of times that happens and the speed at which you're able to respond and how that helps the sales organization meet their deadlines and commitments, being able to allow some of your staff to go talk to customers in person to help them answer certain questions. All those things do a couple things. One, wins you more sales, but two, it makes your people feel respected and appreciated, all just by the attendance of it, the act of it, right? And I think all those things help. Sure, getting people on stage always is a nice thing, but it's typically quarterly or annual reviews things, right? Whereas doing this all the time in little ways and then elevating it up, hugely more valuable. It's more personal. It's like it's relevant to that event, or we went to this customer and did this. That's really a wonderful way to, again, create that culture.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Let's talk about cyber resilience. If resilience means operating through attacks, not just preventing them, what does a modern resilience program look like across vendors and complex environments? And what behaviors make recovery repeatable rather than just heroic?
This is all about turning chaos into choreography in my mind. There's a lot of components to this, right? But resiliency to me is the convergence of your IT disaster recovery, your incident response plan, and mixed with your business continuity, mixed with understanding what your critical business processes are, and getting all of those put together. And then once you've done that, you actually physically test these things. You go in and simulate. You do exercises. You do more than just a tabletop, and you continue to build on that. You might start with really small use cases, and eventually you get all the way to swinging over workloads, through a multi-cloud environment or different data centers or something like that on a weekend. That way you're actually demonstrating that you can physically, tangibly do these things. And then as you build that muscle memory, that's going to turn that inevitable incident into the choreography element of it. You've got that muscle memory built up. You're going to get punched in the mouth in an incident. You're going to have things that you didn't prepare for or didn't know about, but then you're dealing with those very niche things instead of trying to organize the chaos of all of it together. So, and then ultimately you ask what that modern resiliency program looks like. It's you're then able to deal with incidents in a way that is very fluid, it's rehearsed, and you have to deal with far less additional kind of complexity and detail as you go through that incident response.
To build onto that too, I think that the culture piece plays into part of the resilience, the people being resilient so they don't panic necessarily in a situation. I think that goes into how we treat the incident, how we treat others during the incident. It can be a stressful time, and staying calm, collective, and establishing that as the culture, I think makes the incident response and business continuity a lot easier. And then also kind of tackling on, I think from the technical side of things, actually testing these. Tabletops are usually requirements from a compliance standpoint, and it's a good starting point, but to actually go through the process, teams might not be ready, and I think driving the message like that's okay, but to actually go through it, so many lessons learned from it of, hey, maybe this process didn't work. All right, we only have one single point of failure. It's like one network engineer that works one time zone that maybe takes a vacation a couple times a year, which is totally normal. It's a single point of failure, and you highlight these things when you actually go through the full exercise. And doing the exercise early, you're finding things out versus responding to it later, which I think is a great opportunity to bridge the gap with multiple teams, collaborate, learn a lot along the way, implement what is found afterwards, and then also on top of that, you're building resiliency into your program while going through it at the same time.
I'd add one little thing in as well is ensure you're testing your providers, testing your vendors as well. If you have an MDR service, if you have cyber insurance, making sure you're legal in compliance is knowing who to reach out to for that, or a forensics expert, or even a ransomware negotiator, things like that. Testing those in actuality as well, giving them a call and telling them when they answer the phone that, hey, this is just a test, but I'm just going through those motions as well. That's something I think a lot of teams and programs leave out that is critical to check as well, because you might make some tweaks to how you go about that when the inevitable actually occurs.
So great points, and I think too, as you think about how do you manage your resilience, which is really the ability to bounce back from something. And thinking also in the context of we also have a governance responsibility, and so that's where I come up with this term durability. So they're slightly different terms, but sort of in the same direction. Resilience gets you the sort of bounce back after a crisis, but durability is the ability to withstand, tension and to continue and have longevity. And I think those are things that you got to think about in your organization. What things need to be resilient and what things also need to be durable. Yeah. And because they are slightly different, and it's really important when you're dealing with a crisis, what can I be flexible about? What can I not be flexible about in terms of controls I want to continue to have during the crisis? And as my peers also pointed out, right, remember, all of you, especially if you've been through incidents before, this isn't your first rodeo. Right? You know how to do these things. And planning it and having it well organized, drafted, incident response process, practiced, right? It creates confidence in an incident. And because a lot of other people will be in that room who have never been through this before, and they're going to be looking to you for that confidence to keep them calm and sort of navigate the chaos, as my peers also brought up. You know, that's how you do it, right? And that's why it's good to practice, hot wash afterwards, what lessons learned, experience, and then reinforce that again. And that also helps in that durability aspect of it.
I also like the comment where you check with your vendors, like your negotiation team or whatever. Just make sure the phone number is up to date, that still answer the phone, all that, because when it hits the fan, you don't want that additional stress of trying to figure those things out. Let's shift to quantum and post-quantum security. Given the harvest now, decrypt later in uncertain times, what's the smartest move, first move? What's the smartest first move? Start now with encrypt inventory, crypto agility, or wait for vendors' readiness? And how do you explain the risk without hype?
All right, let's go, everybody. We're going beyond AI now. We're getting to the next big topic. No, quantum. It's coming. It's coming. And something. I heard a FBI presentation about a year ago, and he made a really good point in this. And when quantum becomes more of a thing, more commoditized, we're all going to face this together. We are all going to be in it together. There are going to be changes. It's not much different than AI right now in what we're going together, and it could be revolutionary. But in preparedness, it's kind of a mystical thing right now to a lot of people. In preparedness, I would simplify it to say, encourage your teams to be agile, be ready to change, be ready to evolve quickly. And you can practice that in your security tool set today. You can practice that in process reengineering. Get your teams used to change and sometimes just change for change's sake as well, because the better you get at that, the more rehearsed you get at that. When quantum comes, when crypto agility and all of that and identity becomes a whole new ball game, you're just going to be ready to adapt and evolve in a lot quicker fashion. So I think that's the most principled approach you can take right now, because there's a lot of hoopla about it, and some of the identity elements and things like that are just going to evolve even further when it becomes commoditized.
So I agree with him. From my experience, most people don't probably know this, but Honeywell actually creates quantum computers. And so it's one of our spinoffs is a company called Quantinuum. So some of those quantum computers were very near to where we are today in the city. So this is not sort of, future science fiction. It works, and it works very well, and we have one of the fastest quantum computers in the world. The interesting problem, though, is it's good to have one, but you really have to have many to actually make it all work. So to the other points, it's going to take some time. And the worry around, breaking encryption that we all live and love today, well, I do think that's going to happen, and it's probably single digits in terms of what that is. Not in the early part, more in the late part of that. But I do think, that it's a curve, and we're moving through it. I think what we need to all think about is posed for our own selves and our businesses and so forth. It's really more about, hey, are your companies that you're buying products and services from, do they have a post-quantum encryption algorithm or solution? You should ask those questions. You don't need to be a scientist to figure that, to ask the question, see how they respond. And in terms of their products, as they sort of roll forward, do you need it today? No, you don't. There's no need for it. So to your earlier point, there's a lot of hype. What you need is vendors and products that are enabled to be capable of a further or different type of encryption, right? And so you should ask for that. Ask, are you doing it, right? And over the course of the next few years, more and more vendors are going to make their software capable of doing that, and you'll start seeing that roll out. And so they'll start offering this in preparation because, you know, it's a journey and it will take many years to convert lots of stuff to it. So I would just say, you know, it is a bit of a cloud sort of ambiguous thing, but, you know, start asking those questions now, which again triggers those customers, those vendors, those suppliers to actually start working those issues for themselves and start driving to give you those answers when the time comes.
I think that's a good way to lean into what we're doing with AI right now. We're doing new AI security questionnaires. It's being added into some of these different frameworks, and we're likely going to be doing that same thing here in a little bit for some of the quantum space. And we think about like people, process, technology. Technology continues to advance, and it's priming some of those processes to be adaptive to change because we continue to update and iterate on the processes. Technology starts to change, and then the core foundation being the people that kind of ties back to that culture aspect. Being stewards of change, promoting it, making sure that people understand it's okay, it's going to happen. And I think having that people as that foundational layer makes some of these other components of process being updated when we see this new technology come along. But I think that the vendor risk piece of it is probably going to be a pretty interesting piece. And I think from a process standpoint, we can get ahead of it by just staying up to date on new technologies that are out there. Some of this technology is already being used, so maybe seeing what we can learn, building processes at least before maybe we see it inside our own companies. Arming people with changes coming, being able to adapt to it. And then from a vendor side, I like the kind of point of even just asking vendors from tabletop exercise of resilience, but also on, hey, what are you guys doing in this area right now? So you get at least an inventory and know what to expect from some of your supply chain.
Good. Let's talk about deep fakes, because we know that right now a lot of us can, well, some of us can kind of determine what's fake from a video and photo perspective, but technology is going to continue to get better and better with that. So as synthetic media erodes trust in voice, video, and text, what reduces fraud risk faster, detection tech or verification by design? And who should own it across an organization? Security, fraud, legal, communications?
I'll take a stab at this because even some of the phishing tools are getting some of the deepfake capabilities in there that are pretty decent. And then even previous companies, at least check with somebody. I mean, some of the simulation training that we do right now, it's call your IT department or call your security department. If you have clear ownership, at least encourage people to ask questions and train them as much as we can, because I mean, we have to see stuff probably at least over a dozen times before sometimes it iterates with us, and we're going to see it in other different facets of our lives. So I think getting it in front of users and educating them on it is a good first step.
Well said.
Mm-hmm.
What he said, because really, I couldn't add, yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Well, let's shift gears here and open it up for any questions from the audience here and just see where we go. I have a feeling there's questions. Good, we'll wait for a microphone. Kabira?
Hold on.
Yeah, hang on. We'll get you.
Thank you. Great stuff. How do you demonstrate and measure success? How do you demonstrate secure? So I know the product security answer because you actually have to demonstrate success and actually have to provide evidence-based, measurement, right? So I'm just curious from the other folks, how do you do that?
I think it's not always a quantifiable. It's more of a qualifiable type of thing, but it's building a secure culture. It's your employees understanding the processes that go into security. It's understanding the principles. It's also a measure of risk appetite and risk tolerance, risk acceptance across the organization. As soon as you can start speaking that language from department to department, as soon as you get executives into a room and hashing through a risk assessment, and they're asking stronger questions, that's a really big win to me that suggests that you're having success in implementing your program organization-wide.
I'd build on that too. I think the awareness is a huge success factor. I mean, security teams in kind of ratio to the size of the company can be big or small, but if you have the whole company or even 90% of the company at least semi more aware than they were the previous year, I mean, that's a huge step forward, because it means some of the SOFO slide highlighting the human element is still one of the number one causes for breach. So you think the greater awareness that people have of your program and phishing and some of these different elements, the better off the whole company is. So I think that's a huge success metric to highlight.
Also, your ability to innovate, your ability to feel comfortable enabling is another way you can kind of measure and show success. It's as soon as you feel more comfortable allowing the business to do what they want to do because you have such solid controls in place or enough controls in place to feel comfortable with them doing that, that to me is another sign of success.
So that you're not the department of no, it's more of a education of what the risks are.
We had a question over here.
Hi, my question is on the green AI. I heard a lot about like AI impact on environmental and definitely with data center, electricity and water to cool off. But in addition to that, what I heard was like longer prompt versus shorter prompt can help reduce the environmental impact. So what's your thought and guidance on like how do we do appropriate green AI?
So you bring up an interesting concept, which is really how do you offset the impact of all this energy to do the AI, right? And another way I think of it is I heard a term yesterday I love. It's called token economics, which is essentially what you're talking about, which is saying everybody's out there consuming all these tokens. Well, tokens actually translate directly into energy, into footprint and carbon footprint and, all the greenhouse experience that you'd ever want. And the problem is that technology has to move at a particular speed in order to catch and to be in front of the demand. And that's getting harder and harder as we navigate this. And the demand for AI is skyrocketing. Largely, it started out as, how many things that it can sort of make pictures of cats and dogs and things. Now it's actually useful business things. Well, it's not going to be slowing down anytime soon. But I do think what we have to really have a conversation as consumers of this is how best do I want that to be managed, right? And in Europe, this is something they think very thoughtfully about. They use a lot of data centers are now being, leveraging wind as their source of energy. There's now in the U.S. several small modular nuclear power plants being built for data centers for this purpose. And I think this is the sort of thing that intelligent, thoughtful dialogue with the makers of these sorts of data centers, large scale. Google's a good example, AWS in particular. Are doing. They're looking at how can I not just consume a bunch of coal to push a bunch of tokens to get an answer, right? And so that iteration is something that we in the United States are not terribly good at right now because you choose your politic, it's not important, but it is where we are. In other parts of the world, slightly different approach, and that's okay. But that's how we're going to have to sort of wait and see how that plays out as different needs balance with the current demand of this information, right? Tokenization and energy consumption, right? And find a way to do it as green as possible so it doesn't have such a detrimental effect on our globe.
Mm-hmm. Great question. We had another question over here.
Hello. I understand and agree with the importance of building culture, but as a leader who is perhaps a couple of levels removed from operations, what do you personally do to keep your finger on the pulse of the operations teams to mitigate some of the possible communication gaps between management?
I think one of the things we do in IT that I love to talk about is our planning continuum that we do every year. We call it our state of the domain, and it's where all 38 teams in IT that we have, including InfoSec, all of those business technology managers as the CEO of their domain, if you will, prepare a little bit of a spiel on tactically what they're doing over the next 12 to 18 months to accomplish their 10,000-foot view 3 to 5 year strategy roadmap. And in doing so, all of those teams kind of present that roadmap, get it out there on paper for all of the leadership team to consume, and then our senior leadership team within IT will kind of distill that down a little bit more to understand what the broader objectives are across our entire department, including InfoSec, infrastructure, and app dev teams. So that helps kind of just facilitate more discussion across IT and InfoSec. But as it pertains to the business as well, I think that is a cultural thing, is the sharing of different department objectives and strategies. How transparent can you be in that, and how consumable can you make it for the rest of the company? And that's really hard to do in large companies. But whether it be town halls, employee communication meetings, or bringing business partners to your IT and InfoSec leadership meetings to talk about their objectives, I think that helps kind of communicate that a little bit more and draw line of sight to what you're doing in InfoSec.
So one of the things at Honeywell that I was really impressed when I came there is they have, obviously like your companies, they have what we call AOPs, or annual review of your budget and budget planning, and what we call STRAP, which is sort of a 3-year look ahead. A lot of companies have that, some don't, that's okay. But the thing I was really impressed by is they have something called Voice of Employee. So every year, or slightly longer, maybe it's 14 months, 16 months sometimes, every employee gets a survey, and it's done by an outside company, and that incorporates all sorts of questions about, does your manager talk to you? Does your manager give you the information you need to do your job? Does your manager help you with your career, right? All sorts of really great questions about people, right, and culture. And I think that way it gives a vehicle for staff to, have the kinds of questions, and, 3, 4, 5, 6 levels, anywhere in the company, and be able to speak your mind as to what's going on. And those things are aggregated and then sent back up to the different levels in management, so you can see all of your people and say, what's going well, what's not so going well. And then you're expected, as a leader in my case, I have to go through there, and if there's areas of opportunity to improve, I have to go pick those, and I should, and drive improvement, measurable, valuable results to show, and those teams that, yeah, we've fixed that or improved that, or thanks for this feedback, we're going to do this differently. That's a huge win, and it's something that, for me, one of the reasons why I like working where I do, because that loop is very good. It's a very, beneficial, healthy way for everybody in the organization to understand, what's going right, what's not going right. And not just, oh, hey, just drink the corporate Kool-Aid. No, everybody gets to be part of the corporate Kool-Aid. So, it works.
Hey, thank you guys. So my question is pretty much going to be twofold. The first part of that question is, for management, right, how do they define what acceptable risk appetite is, and how can they sort of like paint a picture that teams or other business units can really understand and appreciate, for them to realize that, okay, fine, this is what we mean when you say risk appetite. And the second part of that is, I know that in my role, right, whenever I interact with, let's say, a CISO, they typically ask you the question, hey, how secure are we today? So they pretty much are asking you to give them sort of like a response on how do you think we are doing in terms of our security posture, right? So my question to you on that is, how best can you respond to that question if you are asked, let's say, by someone who is an executive, right, to give them at least some level of assurance that as an organization we are trending in the right direction?
I would say, at least from the first part of the question, the risk appetite definitely depends on the organization. I mean, whether or not you're regulated or unregulated, I think as a baseline to start at. Say if you're unregulated, I think it really comes down to some of your critical applications or critical parts of your business, what's most important, whether it's software that you sell, whether it's a physical location, some of those different areas I think might vary on what your risk is. And You can define it at least on financial loss of something going down, customer impact of something going down. So I think having a good landscape of what your business model is. So like we're a software company. We're reliant on software being up and customers being able to use that software. So our most important aspects are customer uptime and making sure some of those different facets play in. So I think for defining risk appetite, sometimes comes down to executive leadership, but sometimes executive leadership can benefit from the translation education that we can provide as security professionals to paint that picture or storytell a little bit better once we get a better understanding of what's most important to the business, what generates the most revenue, what impacts the most amount of people. Say if you're in healthcare and it's clinics, if you're in financial and it's banks, or whatever it might be, really understanding your business the most, I think can help drive which direction your risk appetite goes.
It's a dance, because when working with the senior leadership, many times they say, we need things up 100% of the time. Okay, well, this is what it's going to cost. And they're like, whoa, geez. Then you break down what the different components of the business are and applications and say, okay, if it's down for 8 hours, everybody goes, that's okay. And you keep going from there to get a sense of what they desire, then come back with what they desire and say, all right, here's what it's going to cost and why. And that helps make the decision process.
Exactly. You know, what you're saying is in a microcosm, and doing that across your infrastructure and saying, you know, what are the things that if they go away for an hour, 12 hours, 2 days, 5 days, will impact you? That's a great, simple, easy way to start that equation. Because it kind of goes back to the earlier comment, first question you asked, like, what's enough? Yeah. Well, this is how you define what's enough, right? Get your critical assets that run your business or functions and go through that exercise. It's not that hard. And come out with, what am I willing to tolerate?
Yeah.
And translate that into the dollar of cost, and that's your risk, right? And then try that for a while, and if that's okay, good. If you get ransomware and suddenly you realize, ooh, that's not so good, then you raise the bar. But if it turns around, you know, yeah, you're out for a day, but it's okay. I can still produce software through other means. Great, you were resilient, good job, move on. But it's kind of how you have to sort of be very pragmatic, right? You have to be very strategic to start, but then once you get that first line drawn, it's all about pragmatism, right? Next one. And is that bad? Is that okay? Is that bad? Is that okay? Yep.
Hello. So Vince, this gets to your comment about cognitive atrophy. And Matthew, your comment about the life of the developer changing.
Speak up just a little bit, or
Sorry. Cognitive atrophy and the life of the developer changing. So AI tools are increasingly handling our coding. Entry-level developers are now at risk of becoming prompt engineers, introducing more and more vulnerabilities. Due to years of experience, senior engineers are able to catch these during code reviews, but that pipeline is getting stressed due to the sheer volume. Inevitably, as people retire, this pipeline is going to get even more stressed, thus putting stress on the cybersecurity industry. How can we future-proof engineering to ensure that the reliance on AI development doesn't lead to a generation of undertrained engineers that are simply unable to catch these new vulnerabilities?
So that's a really good question. What I would tell you that, at least sort of my vision in sort of this scenario, is that AI has to be a better coder, right? Bottom line, and I already see it. Like when I compare the outputs from GitHub Copilot versus Claude, man, I love Claude. Claude's like 10 times better in my opinion, right? It just produces better results. And then when I look at what BDH is doing, Black Duck Hub, sorry, acronyms, is doing, and other tooling that will enhance that real-time experience and can be fully automated so that literally it doesn't arrive bad, right? That's the only way this is going to work, right? Because scaling up, crappy code at speed helps no one. And that's why earlier I said today, this is not a thing that cybersecurity, professionals in my team are going to be able to solve. Like if it gets to them, it's too late, right? In an AI world. So it has to happen at the very beginning by ensuring the tools your company buys and deploys are thoroughly vetted, are in fact secure, and then you turn AI loose on top of that to validate it. So think of it almost like AI pen testing, right? Is a whole other angle of this that you're going to think about, right? Because you're going to have a way to vet this at speed, because it will be doing 10, 100 times more of whatever it is than the human was doing.
I think we got time for one more.
I was just going to add on to that really quick too. I mean, you have like branch protection rules in place on some of those aspects. Like you still require a review to get into any sort of production state. Implement a sandbox so people can test out new applications, new code before it gets there. Generate SBOM so you're aware of what's actually in the application. There's plenty of code scanning tools. The code volume is going to be, to your point, 10x, 100x. And you can even build AI code review tools, but use some of the security tools that are native to scan the code, understand what's in it, because then you're still getting the same output. You're putting maybe code out quicker, but you still have check marks in place like the branch protection rules or code scanning that's built into the CI/CD pipeline, while on top of that you have the guardrails kind of around the park and let people play in the sandbox. Don't let them throw stuff out.
Perfect. We answered the online question, right? Did you read that? Is that what no? No, that was his question. That was good. We're done. All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Working. Test. Okay. We are going to do prizes, and he's going to come in that door with the prizes. If you guys could just stand up for a second. Yep. All right. And the bar is still open. So my panelists, if you guys want to grab a drink, the bar is open over there. Thank you so much. How about another round of applause for this great panel? The best part of my job